A boy discovers a mysterious egg on the beach and takes it home, but one day the shell cracks and a real adventure begins. This is the movie The Waterhorse, Legend of the Deep, and it will show you the true story of the Loch Ness Monster. This story begins in present-day Scotland. Tourists are looking at the legendary photo of Nessie. An old man tells them that the photo is fake, but there is a great mystery behind it. The old man's story takes us back to 1942. It was the time of the Second World War. But the small town by Loch Ness lives a peaceful life. A boy named Angus lives here. He likes the lake a lot, although he's a little frightened by it. Angus prefers collecting seashells to swimming. Suddenly, he sees a strange stone. His mother calls him, so the boy puts the stone in a bucket and takes it home. Angus's family lives in a manor house. We learn from his mother and his sister Kirsty that the boy is very withdrawn and doesn't tend to have fun these days. Meanwhile, Angus takes his find to the workshop. We see a calendar on which the boy is counting down the days. His dad is a sailor. The boy is waiting for his father to return from the military service. Angus examines the stone and discovers a shining pearlescent egg under the layer of shells. At night, the boy hears a noise coming from the workshop. He rushes there. But where's the egg? It seems to have fallen off the table and broken. Whatever was inside, it's now out and mischievous around the workshop. Angus chases after the bizarre creature, trying to catch it. The creature tries to bite him, but Angus doesn't get spooked by this. He runs into the kitchen instead. Grabbing a potato, the boy brings it to the creature. It turns out that the creature was just scared and hungry, and now it's letting Angus pet it. The next morning, the boy wakes up to the noise of arriving vehicles. A convoy of military vehicles is approaching the manor house. Captain Hamilton commands the troops. He looks for the housekeeper, Mrs. McMorrow. That's Angus's mother. The owner of the manor house is away, and the artillery troops were ordered to set up here for a while. But the boy doesn't care about soldiers. He runs to the library and looks for an encyclopedia. While he was away, the creature smashed up the workshop. The poor thing is just looking for something to eat. Angus hurries to the kitchen, but he faces an unpleasant surprise there. Soldiers are in charge of the kitchen, and the food is guarded by a dog named Churchill. Angus offers to take out the garbage and drags the garbage bucket to his pet. The hungry creature happily dives into the leftovers. Angus thinks of a name for it. Robinson Crusoe was all alone, and the creature is a loner too. Angus decides to nickname it Crusoe. But who is Crusoe? Angus looks through the encyclopedia. Sadly, there is no mention of such a creature there. Angus notices that the baby creature's skin is completely dry, so he pours water into the garbage bucket. The creature joyfully swims in it. While Angus is busy with his pet, we see the fishermen on Loch Ness who spot a military plane. Jimmy the gossiper claims that the soldiers are tracking German submarines here. It turns out to be true. Captain Hamilton is arranging the artillery batteries. The lake borders the sea, which means the Germans could land here. The passage is blocked by an anti-submarine net. The captain dreams of one day lowering the net, luring the enemy submarine into the lake and destroying it. In the pub, they're talking about nothing but the soldiers. The only thing that can distract the local gossipers is the appearance of a mysterious stranger. Angus's mom comes into the workshop. The stranger from the pub also shows up there. His name's Lewis. He came to work as a handyman. Mrs. McMorrow tells him to clean up the workshop. When Angus arrives, Lewis is pulling a bucket of water out of the workshop. Oh no, the water spurts out, but the bucket is empty. The boy is angry with the stranger. Lewis says that he'll get out of the workshop when Angus's father comes back from the front. In the meantime, he's been hired to live and work here. Captain Hamilton hurries to meet the new handyman. Lewis refuses to shake the captain's hand and defiantly walks away. But where is Crusoe? He has escaped from the workshop and is exploring the estate. The poor thing is drawn to the smell of food, but the kitchen is guarded. The dog is chasing the small creature. The toothy maw almost catches it, but What good luck that the dog was tethered. Meanwhile, Angus's sister is running a bath, unaware of the surprise that awaits her. The boy immediately realizes what happened when he hears his sister screaming. He rushes into the bathroom. It seems that Crusoe grew bigger once he got from a small bucket to a bathtub of water. Angus begs his sister to keep him a secret. Crusoe won't survive if the soldiers find him. Mrs. McMurrow notices that Lewis is wearing tattered clothes and brings him her husband's things. Lewis is confused. Won't Mr. McMurrow need these clothes? Here, we learn a terrible secret. Angus's dad isn't coming back. His ship sank almost a year ago. As she leaves, Mrs. McMurrow sees the scars on Lewis's back. She gives him his first task, to repair the guest bathroom. But here's the problem. Crusoe is taking a dip in the guest bathroom. The children try to keep Lewis out, but he gets in and sees the creature. Having calmed down, Lewis tells an old Celtic legend about a magical water horse who lives in the sea. It lays only one egg before dying, so that another water horse can be born. The children beg Lewis not to tell their mother about Crusoe. She's already on her way back to the bathroom, but when Mrs. McMurrow comes in, the bathtub is empty. Where's Crusoe? It turns out that the clever handyman has hidden him in the toilet. Later, Lewis explains to Angus that a water horse cannot live in a bathtub forever. They must release him into the lake. But Angus is very lonely, and he doesn't want to lose his only friend. Meanwhile, the soldiers are holding a reception in honor of the housekeeper. The kitchen lives its own life too. The cook and the sergeant are flirting. Kirsty calls Angus to look at that. Left alone, Crusoe immediately jumps out of the bathtub. The children are having fun watching the lovely couple. Suddenly, Angus realizes the dog has run out of the kitchen. Churchill has tracked Crusoe down again. The chase is on. The dog and Crusoe run around the estate and smash everything along the way. Eventually, they break into the hall where the officers are feasting. The water horse hides. Lewis takes the blame and explains that he was just trying to catch the dog. Once outside, Crusoe finds a pond with a fish and happily rushes in. In the morning, Lewis hears a growl in the yard and finds Crusoe, who has grown bigger. Lewis wakes up Angus, and together they take the water horse into a truck and drive him to the lake. But Crusoe doesn't want to leave his friend, so they have to distract him with food. Lewis returns to the workshop. Captain Hamilton is waiting for him. He hasn't forgiven Lewis for the ruined banquet. The captain is sure that the strange handyman is either a spy or a deserter. Lewis doesn't like Hamilton very much either. He claims that a true man defends his country at a front line, while the cunning captain just sits on the home front. But what about Crusoe? He scares the local fisherman. It seems he's gotten huge in the lake. The only one who spots him is Jimmy the gossiper. Captain Hamilton realizes he failed to seduce Miss McMurrow at the reception. He decides to pace his way to her using her son. The captain starts to educate Angus. While Crusoe is having fun and chasing fish, the boy is marching and cleaning soldiers' boots. But as soon as the captain gets distracted, Angus runs away. Overcoming his fear of water, he gets into a boat and sails to the center of the lake. Suddenly, drops of water fall from above. The boy raises his head and sees the giant Crusoe. They are delighted to meet again. Angus is so unwilling to let go of his friend that he accidentally falls on his back. Crusoe doesn't mind being his water horse, but he doesn't know that the boy is afraid of water. Crusoe dives in. Angus panics, but just when it looks like the boy is about to run out of oxygen, a miracle happens. Crusoe seems to have learned to understand commands, and Angus has finally overcome his fear. They're enjoying the underwater world together. The only thing stopping the friends is the anti-submarine net. When Crusoe brings the boy back to the shore, they are spotted by Churchill the dog. The dog's master sees something huge lurking under the water. In the evening, Angus tells Lewis and his sister about his adventure. Mom hears her son laughing through the door for the first time in a long time. That's when Lewis notices her. He goes out to talk to her. Turns out Lewis has a lot in common with Mr. McMorrow. He was in the Navy as well. Unlike the coward Hamilton, he served at the front line, not on the home front. Scars on his body are left by enemy bullets. Captain Hamilton overhears the conversation as well. He decides to find out as much as he can about Lewis. Turns out that the guy is a former soldier and a hero. Meanwhile, Jimmy the Gossiper is telling everyone about a monster in the pub. A newspaper reporter gets interested in the story. If they manage to photograph the monster, a lot of tourists will come to Loch Ness. Determined to compete for Mrs. McMorrow, Captain Hamilton takes her family to an artillery location. He wants to show how his unit will be destroying the German submarines. Angus realizes that the soldiers will start firing on the lake. He throws a tantrum, shots ring out, the shells fall into the water and almost hit the water horse. Everyone is terrified. Angus, because his friend could have been hurt, Jimmy the Gossiper, because the monster was spooked. But Jimmy's not going to give up. He and the photographer make a fake stuffed animal, and that's how the legendary fake photo was taken. One day, Churchill's master notices it in the newspaper. He recalls seeing something similar in the lake. The soldiers decide to hunt down the monster. Having found out about this, Lewis takes Angus to the lake. The boy must persuade Crusoe to swim away from the shore, but when Crusoe appears, he behaves strangely. The shelling frightened Crusoe. Now he doesn't trust people, and rightly so. At the same time, the soldiers are just about to set sail to catch him, but they can't spot him in the water. The only one who can track the water horse is Churchill the dog. He finds Crusoe, but he's no longer a baby monster. A giant monster rises from the water. The dog's barking dies down. Crusoe seems to have gotten even with his enemy, and then he overturns the soldier's boat. Captain Hamilton receives terrible news. His men are under attack. He assumes the Germans are attacking them. The unit receives orders to shoot any suspicious objects. Kirsty tells Mom that Angus ran away to the lake. Mrs. McMorrow decides to go with the captain. She must find her son. Angus sees that Crusoe has attacked one of the soldiers. He runs into the water to stop him, slips and goes down. Once Crusoe hears the screams, he comes to his senses. He spits out the soldier and dives after Angus, but it seems to be late. Angus is unconscious. He sees Daddy leaving for the front. Angus promises that he'll be strong and look after Mommy, and he will keep his promise. The boy comes back to his senses in Lewis's arms. That's when his mother and Captain Hamilton arrive. Now everyone sees the water horse, except the soldiers see it too. Crusoe's head looks like a submarine's periscope. That's why the soldiers start shooting at the lake. Angus jumps on Crusoe's back and orders him to swim away. The shells fall into the lake. The captain tries to contact his men by the radio to give a call to stand down, but the connection doesn't work. Forgetting their mutual enmity, the men start the boat and go out into the lake. To prevent the submarine from sailing away, the soldiers raise an anti-submarine net. Crusoe doesn't make it out to the sea in time. What will they do? A speedboat arrives. Lewis begs Angus to let Crusoe go. The boy says goodbye to his friend and swims to the boat. Meanwhile, Crusoe speeds up and leaps out of the water. He hits the net. The towers that hold it are collapsing. At last, Crusoe is free. The morning comes. Angus has grown up a lot overnight. He realizes that Crusoe isn't coming back, and neither is Dad. And here we are back in present-day Scotland. The tourists are mesmerized by the story. Then they ask for the man's name, and he introduces himself. He's Angus McMorrow. We see another mom looking for her child. The boy is sitting on the shore and looking at a strange rock, and we can spot a shining pearlescent egg under the layer of shells.